All get connected. Just make sure you are muted, and we'll get started here in about a minute, just letting everyone get situated. Okay, if it looks like everyone's okay.
Richard, are we waiting for Rob?
Um,
I don't know if Rob's joining us.
I'm the one hosting the presentation here. If maybe you're with Rob Stokely over at Mill Ridge. If so, we're your pool vendor for 2021.
Jennifer Heim joined the meeting.
So it might be that he gave you the link to be able to see the presentation so we can talk about it. But anyway, we're going to be getting started here. So like I said, if you wouldn't mind muting, if you have any questions, please use the chat function. It will be monitored throughout the presentation. If the person monitoring it feels that it's pertinent to the discussion that I'm currently having, he'll let me know and I'll answer it right then and there. Otherwise, we may hold it to the end, but please ask questions. I'm here to help, and I'm here to educate and help everyone get to a point where they can open their pool this season and have a safe, successful summer. Which gets us to the point of this meeting. Pool operations for 2021 and preparing your community for that. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jonathan Lees. I'm the account executive here at Bennington Pool. I run the day-to-day operations here, ensuring that our pools are blue, clear, clean, and at most importantly, safe. I also lead the sales team here. So when it comes to client acquisition, renovations, repairs, I'm the main point of contact for everyone from those perspectives here at Bennington Pool. I've been in the commercial pool industry for about 10 years now. I originally worked for another pool firm up until 2018, and I've been with Bennington ever since. So our objective of this presentation is to go over a few different things here. Operations with regard to COVID-19, Bennington's client portal, something new that we're rolling out for this year. And then last but not least, pool opening, something that's actually going on right now. So COVID-19, what do we need to know here? Well, where everything currently stands in regard to COVID-19 and pool operations is that we have not received any updated guidance from the end of last summer until now from either the CDC or local health departments. What that means in regards to the guidelines that we have to meet to operate pools within that scope are from the CDC, capacity restrictions, social distancing, disinfection of high touch and shared surfaces, masking when not in the water, and maintaining chlorine above 1 parts per million. That last one there, just for perspective, your pool chlorine is normally somewhere in the range of a 1 to a 10, depending on where your pool is located. If you're within Philadelphia County, it's normally between 1 and 5 parts per million. But basically, the universal accepted range of chlorine is from a 1 part per million to a 10 part per million. Our normal goal of pool operations is to keep that chlorine somewhere around a 3 to a 4 for parts per million. That's either monitored by some type of automation if you might not have a lifeguard, or it's monitored manually by someone testing the water and then making an adjustment via the feeder some way, shape, or form. From the local health departments, the restrictions that we have, 90% of them are just saying follow CDC guidelines. It's about all the guidance that we got from Chester County, which is inclusive of Delaware County, since Delaware County does not have its own health department. Montgomery County, same thing. But then when we got to Bucks in New Jersey, they are requiring a more stringent COVID plan with the addition of someone that is normally a COVID ambassador or COVID monitor outside of the lifeguards. That's where the lifeguard cannot enforce these things. That's the other thing we've gotten from almost every single county where the lifeguard cannot be your COVID ambassador. They've all deemed that for most part to be a safety risk. Um, so when it comes to mask enforcement or disinfection or things along those lines, most of the local health departments have said your lifeguard staff can't be that person because it takes them away from the safety of the pool, which is their number one priority. From a capacity perspective, one thing that we saw from local health departments versus CDC guidelines was that they were enforcing capacity based on bather load instead of area of the pool. The difference between the two. So when we talk about the area of the pool, that's normally what you would get from like a fire marshal, like a actual capacity of number of people within a fenced area. For bather load, that's the amount of people that can actually be in your physical swimming pool. It's a calculation derived from depth of the water and surface area. Depending on how much surface area is in a certain depth, you get that many people per square foot. And it's less people in deep water, more people in shallow water. But from that, we can calculate your capacity. And I thought that made sense because when it came out that it could be as many people as you wanted in the pool area, but it was like 50% capacity, 50% of capacity for some pool areas far exceeds the amount of people that can actually be in the water and still be socially distanced. So when we were talking to our clients last year about capacity restrictions, we were talking to them about doing it from a bather load perspective. The reason being is that we have to assume that every single person that's at your pool could be in the water at any given time. And if we exceed that in water capacity, it means that we could get into a position where if everyone in the pool area were to get into the water at any given time, that we have violated the social distancing aspect of the guidelines there. So how do we do that? Make sure that we set our capacity based off bather load instead of the actual area capacity inside of the pool. So how do we meet these guidelines are the trickier part here. When we talk about capacity restrictions, it's fairly simple. That is something that we were able to have our lifeguard staff help out with last year. Easiest ways we saw it done were through reservation systems that were put in place at your pool. We saw a lot of clients successfully use Sign Up Genius to do this. You would say your capacity was 25 people. You would make 25 sign-up slots. People would sign in for those. If you were able to provide us access to your login for that, we would have our lifeguard monitor it at the pool and basically check that someone had a reservation before they came in. And with that, when you combined it capacity with a social distancing aspect, normally what we'd have people do for reservations was they would reserve an area instead of a one person at a pool. They would say reserve spot 1 or spot 5, which spot 1 or 5 could hold two people, 3 people, and instead of it being a single person, they could put 2 to 3 family members there, since we do assume that most people don't necessarily come to the pool by themselves when they do attend the pool, that those spots could then be physically designated on the deck, whether some people use duct tape to do it, some people use washable paint to do it. But they basically built these blocks on the deck to designate this is your area and then numbered them. What this allowed for everyone to do was basically say, hey, I'm in spot 3. I stay when I'm not in the water, I'm in spot 3. And that handled your social distancing aspect. Physical, it's like when you go to the grocery store, you'll see the arrows on the ground or things along those lines. It's telling you where to go. The physical sign there saying, hey, this is your spot. These are the boundaries of your spot. It allowed for that to be able to take place. Masking, it's all become part of our everyday lives. Whenever you're around people that you're not within your family circle, you're wearing masks. So it's pretty straightforward that everyone would expect coming to the pool wear a mask. We didn't see a lot of pushback on it at all last year. Most communities added it to their pool rules as something for people to easily recognize. And then the last one, but the most challenging of this was the disinfection part. How do we go about getting our high touch surfaces disinfected when the lifeguard staff weren't allowed to do it per guidelines or unable to do it from our perspective? That's an insurance, main part of it, it's an insurance problem. We're not a cleaning company, so we're not insured to be able to clean your pool, do disinfection. Any pool company that's telling you they can or might, I would ask you to look at their insurance qualifications to say that they can disinfect things for you. But how do we do that then? Some communities would employ cleaning service to come in periodically throughout the day, especially if they had bathrooms that were open, to be able to disinfect those bathrooms, the rails, everything like that. Some people would use their maintenance staff if they were an apartment complex or someone who had someone on site to be able to do that. We saw people employ resident volunteer systems to be able to do this, putting the onus on the residents to be able to go out. Someone would volunteer for each time slot. They were responsible for disinfection during that time slot. The other thing we've seen is people are reducing the amount of disinfection needed. So what do we need to disinfect? High touch and shared surfaces. What are those in a pool is the question here. It's your furniture, it's your rails, it's bathrooms, knobs in the gate, things along those lines. So how can we reduce our high touch surfaces? Well, furniture, for instance, that could be left away for the season, and it could be a policy of bringing your own chair to the pool. We saw that employed at, I'd say, almost 90% of our pools that opened last year employed a bring your own chair policy to the pool area. Most people just bring a beach chair or some type of folding chair with them, and that eliminated the need for disinfection of furniture. When it came to bathrooms, not all municipalities require you to have an active bathroom at the pool. Some of our pools do not have bathrooms at them. So if you don't need your bathroom opened, you can consider not having it open for resident use. We still require that there would be some type of bathroom on site for the lifeguard to use, if there is a lifeguard involved at your pool. But if you don't have a lifeguard, or for instance, if your bathroom's attached to your clubhouse and your clubhouse isn't open, not necessarily required depending on the municipality that you're involved in there. The last one being the rails. That's the one we couldn't get around. And I've been talking to most of the local health departments here about disinfection of rails. And it's a subject that's up for debate currently, whether it will be involved in a disinfection process for this year or not, considering that the rails do go into the water. And the first thing you touch after you touch the rail is either a chlorinated pool, or the first thing you touch after coming out of water is someone whose hands are covered in chlorine from the water touching a rail. So whether or not they'll still be involved in the disinfection process is currently up for debate at the local health municipalities, but they're more likely than not going to follow the CDC guidelines, and they tend to be more overarching. So it would have to come probably for the local health departments to make the decision if that was not a high touch surface. If it is, it will need to be disinfected. But that's all. That's part of coming up with your plan to be able to do so. The last but not least, high touch surfaces, like I said, doors and gates. So propping doors open at the beginning of the day, propping the gate open at the beginning of the day allowed for us to have fewer high touch surfaces. The other ones being logbooks, and I'll get into that next here, how we got around with logbooks. Last year we used QR codes, so we had a touchless sign-in system. We would encourage our communities to have their residents bring a smartphone with them. That picture on the side of here is a QR code. You would scan that with your phone, and it would take you to a Google form that you'd fill out, and that was your pool sign-in. And instead of using a pen and paper, we would use this. We actually liked this. It was a great way to meet the record-keeping requirement that we have for when people
Join the meeting.
And when we talk about the record-keeping requirement, your sign-in book is a legal document that has to be kept for a certain number of years after each pool. I actually had an incident maybe 4 years ago where there was a lawsuit going on with a slip and fall at the community, and the resident had mentioned that they'd been at the pool or something like that the day before or something along those lines. And we pulled the logbook and we found that the logbook said that that person was lying. They were not at the pool. They did not sign in. And it was part of the legal process there. So those are documents we do keep a record of. And it's easier to keep a digital record than it is to keep a paper book. So this is something we'll be rolling out at all of our communities. We'll still have a paper book there for residents that don't have a smartphone, because not everyone does. But we're trying to limit that as much as possible. So, and then last thing, but not here, hiring monitors. So some people did go to an outside staffing service to acquire someone to be their pool monitor. This was again in Bucks County in New Jersey specifically. where there was an additional person on staff that the community hired outside of Bennington to meet the COVID guidelines of monitoring social distancing, disinfection, things along those lines. Yeah, so those were the main things. Like I said, reservations and time slots, touchless sign-in, bringing your own chair, a disinfection plan, and then hiring outside monitors. And whether we might be offering that service this year, we're working with our insurance provider to see if we can, but it's not something we can guarantee at this point. So getting into the next thing here, which is what's currently going on. The pool on the right there, I actually just opened it up yesterday. That is not pictures of it from yesterday. That is last year's opening. But I'm already actually opening pools. We're taking covers off, setting up furniture, and getting everything ready for the 2021 season. If you're a Bennington client, I may or may not have already done an on-site inspection to check the status of your pool, check inventory, supplies, things like that. And some key dates to keep in mind here, if you are a Bennington client, is fresh water needs to be on your pool April 1. Copies of keys need to be made by April 1 as well. And this goes for if you're a non-Bennington client as well. Your pool vendor is going to more likely than not need the fresh water on and need copies of your keys. And then furniture layout before. Opening is the first step of a successful pool season. I say this every single year to all of my clients. It's the only time of the year where we normally have a time crunch. And when I say that, what I mean is there's a deadline. We have to get your pool open and ready to go by Memorial Day weekend. And some factors that are playing into it this year that have not in other years is when you talk about your mail right now, how long does it take to get a letter? The same thing is going to apply to get parts and other type of mechanical things that we may need for your pool. Whether we turn your pool motor on and we find that it's seized up or dead, or you fire up your heater and it needs a heat exchanger, or any of these other big items that could be found when you first start a pool each year. It's really important that you talk with your pool vendor, get started early, because if something is wrong, there are longer lead times on all these parts and parts, supplies, everything that goes with the operation of a pool that are going to be a factor for this year. We've worked with our vendors to be able to get our own supply lined up and kept here at the office so that we can better serve our clients. But if you don't have communication already started with your vendor about your pool opening, start now so that you can get on the schedule and get your pool up operational and ready to go as early as possible, so we can find these issues beforehand to be able to address them better. Because the lead time on a motor, which was days, is now weeks. And the longer your pool sits without a motor running, as we get into these warmer temperatures that we're currently experiencing, the quicker it's going to be for that pool to go from blue and clear to green and cloudy. And that's not what we're looking for. So, sorry, wrong button there. So with that in mind, I'm up and available still, but as I get towards the end of this month and I get more into pool openings, I won't be as readily available. I can still help with getting your community's COVID plan, and I can still help getting you set up for your opening plan. More likely than not, we've already talked about your opening plan if you're a current client or you're a long-term client. We don't need to because we know your opening plan. But if you have not had that conversation, and if you still haven't signed a contract, that's the other big one. If you don't have your vendor locked up already, your vendor might not have availability right now. Our portfolio is 90% set. And if you are not currently under contract with a vendor, you need to encourage your board or your management or whomever you're working with to make that decision on whom you're going to be using for the 21 season, because vendors have less capacity than they might have had in years past just due to the restrictions that are coming with COVID-19. Whether it's, like I said, parts being readily available, chemicals being readily available. Not only did, in my previous presentation, did I talk about the fact that there was already a chemical shortage due to the fact that two factories, which produce about 75% of the chlorine for the United States, which are located in Texas, they burned down, one from the hurricane and one from another type of situation that was not related to a hurricane. Then Texas just went through the cold front that came in there and completely knocked out their power grid. Now there is more production that's shut down in Texas, which is where a lot of this manufacturing takes place from the parts and chemicals perspective. So it's only gotten worse since that Texas incident 2 weeks ago. Get your vendor locked up now, because in, I'd say, the next 2 weeks, more likely than not, vendors will not be able to take on new clients for 2021. They're going to have locked in their portfolio based on the supply of chemical and parts that they have available, as well as staffing. We're already recruiting our lifeguards and getting everything lined up for 2021. So make those decisions. If there are any questions, I'm going to stay on here. Like I said, put them in the chat. But aside from that, thank you very much. Have a great day.
How do you recruit your lifeguards?
Locally. So
Yeah.
it's as simple as that. We use social media. We use other type of hiring services, not hiring services, but like ad placement and things like that. But then we train them in-house and go from there.
John, we do have a question.
Mhm.
Do we need to have residents use the app to set a time to use the pool?
Dropped out there, Kev.
Do we need to have residents use the app to set a time to use the pool?
You normally, yes. If you're going to use a sign-up genius or something along those lines, that's an external. The community would need to set up a sign-up genius and then give people access to it. But more likely than not, they would need to have some type of computer access to sign in for pool reservation. If you were to use Sign Up Genius, there are other examples that people did pen and paper, where they put a sign up sheet outside the office, and people signed up for slots. But if you use any digital type of stuff, the residents would need to make their own reservations. Yes.
What supervision do you provide to lifeguards?
So our management team is multi-tiered, with the lifeguards being the first level of management. They are the on-site face of Bennington Pool Services. They're the person that's going to be there every single day. Their direct report is their field manager. That person works directly for me. They are visiting the site 6 days a week. They're going to make sure that the lifeguard is following safety procedure, is enforcing your pool rules, and that everything is, being upkept from a chemical and pump maintenance perspective. After them, I have my field technicians. They're visiting site minimally once a week, doing a more in-depth chemistry and pump check. And then myself visiting at least once a week, just do an oversight of my team to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do, as well as doing employee self-service, making sure that the lifeguards are being, taken care of, that there aren't things going wrong, as well as having normally a conversation with your management team to get a feel for how the service is. Not to say that we don't talk more regularly than that, but just do an on-site check as well.
Can you explain bather load?
Sure. So bather load is like I said, it's a capacity of how many people can be in the water. The difference lies, it's a surface area calculation. So say your pool is about 2,000 square feet, which is pretty straightforward for a lot of pools. Actually, the normal number is 1,800 square feet for your 30 by 60 commercial pool that's rectangular. That pool normally has a slope starting in the deep end, and that slope normally is at 5 feet. The reason being is because of bather load, and then it does a constant slope down. So anything under 5 feet or 5 feet and under, you can have one person for every 15 square feet. Anything over 5 feet deep, you can have one person per 20 square feet. So we simply take a measurement of the pool, how much of your pool is less than 5 feet, how much of your pool is more than 5 feet, and then take those surface area calculations, divide them by 15 and divide them by 20. And from there, we have your bather load, add them together.
Jonathan,
Mm-hmm.
This is Richard from Mill Ridge.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, we would like to get our pool probably retiled.
Correct.
Need the coping stones replaced. Are you going to, with your workload now, would you have the ability to do that before the pool opens? We open normally Memorial Day weekend.
Correct. I have to check with my renovation team and get back to you on that one. I do believe I have it penciled in, but I have to 100% confirm that for you, and I can do that offline.
Okay.
Can you explain the difference between a lifeguard and a pool attendant?
Sure. So some proposals that you're seeing out there will say lifeguard of them. Some will say pool attendants. The big difference between the two is one is a certified lifeguard and the other is a pool attendant. Normally, you'll see with the main difference there is an insurance perspective. Your pool company that's providing a lifeguard, more likely than not, is providing some sort of indemnification from an insurance perspective. A pool company that's normally providing just a pool attendant, there's no indemnification for any drownings or any type of other safety incidents that may happen at the pool. If you were to use a lifeguard or if you were to use a pool attendant, you don't have that indemnification if there were to be a drowning. Your pool company is not there for safety purposes. If the pool attendant, all they're doing is checking passes and cleaning the pool more likely than not. So the biggest difference between the two is the insurance perspective, as well as the safety one. If someone were to drown, the person that's sitting in your pool is not a lifeguard and therefore cannot act to save them. It's impersonation, it's fraud. So
Are you still able to sign full service lifeguard contracts for clients, and how will I get a bid?
if you would like to get a bid, we need to talk basically immediately. So if you are on this call and you are looking to get a bid from me, reach out to me today. If more likely than not, if you're on this call, you have my email or if you have my phone number. If you do not, message in the chat so that we can get it over to you. But my availability is currently limited. I have bids out, but more likely than not, my window of opportunity for having clients for 2021 is rapidly closing. All right, if that's any questions, thank you for attending, and I look forward to working with you guys if you're a Bennington client this summer. If not, I hope you have a safe and successful 2021 season.
John,
We're always here as a resource. Reach out if you have any questions.
John, we do have one more question.
Sure.
Are lifeguards an issue?
Not currently. We already started our staffing process, and we are looking ready to go. If anything, I would say that the current labor market is great for hiring, just due to the fact that there is a current unemployment rate that's a little higher than normal. So there's a lot of people looking for work, and there's not as many college internships as there might normally be due to COVID restrictions. So with that in mind, there are more people readily available to work.
How many sites do you have?
We'll wrap up somewhere in between 70 and 100. We try to maintain that small company feel and service the clients that we have and make sure that they're taken care of. All right, well, thank you all. Have a great day.